This is the Heroic Voice, where I talk to comic book creators, people I've worked with, other interesting people, about the history of comics, superheroes, and the current state of the comic book industry. I also discuss current and upcoming projects, current events, and any other topics my guests might be interested in talking about. So subscribe and hit the like button. Help me grow this channel and promote indie comic book creators, publishers, and other people affiliated with the comic book industry. Your comments are appreciated. Get to it and leave feedback, good, bad, and otherwise. I am your host, Dennis Maloney, writer, publisher of the Heroic Multiverse, where we spotlight good girls, bad girls, super babes, and superheroics in a classic, kind of golden agey style. Grab some snacks and enjoy. This is the Heroic Voice. Welcome to the Heroic Voice. I'm here with Allen Carter, an accomplished cartoonist. He's done several things that I think people will find appealing. Cosmic Force, Figure of Speech Mongoose, Damn Tourists, a fourth project that Alan will get into. But if it's okay with you, Alan, I would like to start, as I start with many comic book artists, comic professionals, how it started for you, how you got into the comic book business.
Well, before the comic books, it was the Saturday morning cartoons. Just growing up watching, the old Spider-Man and X-Men cartoons and just being inspired by, what I saw on TV, but not knowing maybe how to create a cartoon at, 7, 8 years old. But my dad had a big comic book collection, so I got to know the characters through that. I took a writing workshop in first grade, and those all came together with just like a general love of storytelling and say, hey, why don't I just do my own characters? And this was from 8 years old, and it kept going through middle school into high school and to college, and I just really kept at it. And as soon as I moved from Hawaii to Los Angeles, it was, all about trying to find a way to promote my work and trying to sell my work, and that led into comic book conventions. So it's one of those things that just the passion was always there and it never stopped. And it just grew larger as soon as I found like-minded people who were also creators, either writers or artists. So that, always kept like the creative juices flowing for me.
Okay. Any great influences on you at that early age or later?
There were two. One was the late artist George Perez.
Mhm.
I really liked his backgrounds, and that goes into another influence, which was an art teacher of mine. His name is Samuel Campos. He has a book called Pineapple Man, and I took a cartoon illustration class from him, and he actually showed me a book with like a lot of George Perez art, and he just said, "Hey, look, I think your art is like kind of similar because you both like doing like these really elaborate backgrounds, and I love just generally doing cityscapes just as a kid." And that just like came together. So to see somebody really professional doing that, like that was an inspiration, along with Sam Campos, who later had like a big comic book community in Hawaii. So both of those were very influential to me.
That community, if I'm not mistaken, was like the Hawaii Comic Book Association or something like
Or
that.
the Hawaii Comic Book Alliance.
Alliance. Alliance. Okay. George was a stickler for detail. He always loved getting. That was what made his artwork so memorable, I suppose, was that attention to all the tiny little twiddly bits that you can get in there. He put them in. Um, let's talk about your first published work. You have your own publishing house, right? What was the first thing that you did?
So they all, excuse me, they all came together within like a few months of each other. But technically, the very first one was Cosmic Force, and that was a story that I had a version of it since age 8. It kind of morphed from maybe like a superhero duo, and maybe just in terms of like really lighthearted, like say like a Fantastic Four, to something more like the X-Men, something a bit more, more actually more science fiction oriented. So the current story is just about five people who get displaced during a meteor shower. They go missing, they come back, they realize it's been 2 years later, not 24 hours, and everyone thinks that they're deceased, including like their friends and family. They also have these abilities they can't control, but they're more concerned about trying to reconnect with the people close to them that they lost. And the story takes place in Hawaii around the late 80s, and it's set up similar to, because I was a big fan of unsolved mysteries, so it's set up like that type of a story, like that type of like unexplained event. And the reader, just as they go on, like I'll drop little hints about what may have happened to them. And once they find out, like, okay, so how do they deal with it? How do the people around them deal with it? And it's currently 6 issues. I'm actually writing a two-part, well, actually illustrating a two-part finale. The script was done about a year or so ago. So it's issue 7, 8, which is going to be one big trade. Issue 7 was done about a year and a half ago, and then I'm close to halfway done in issue 8, which will wrap the entire story up. And it's all about just trying to like figure out like, what their next move is once they find out like one of the biggest revelations of all, which is who did this to them and what, and when people start to just, start to suspect that there's something going on, like, are these characters aliens or what's happening to them? Are they half human? So all these things come to a head and then they all have to be resolved.
And all five of these principal characters, each of them has a specific power or power set, right? And
Yes.
different from each other. You've got one of them that has fire powers, which is normal. You've got someone able to duplicate himself holographically. Um, what are the
So
others?
of
There's
the other three, he can he actually is permanently turned into like the silhouette form,
hmm,
but in that form, he has durability and he has superhuman strength, but he's just kind of stuck that way. And then I have a character who is kind of the unofficial leader. She can create force fields for herself and for other people, but she can't physically attack anyone. So really her only power is that defense. So she's there to protect people. She can also kind of teleport. So it's all these different powers to kind of get people away from danger or to just protect them rather than to attack.
mhm.
And the last character can actually age an object or a person if he holds on to them too long.
Ah, okay. That's an interesting power. I don't recall many instances of that. There was one Flash story where that was a problem for him a long time ago in the Silver Age. But the notion of just causing something to age and deteriorate, that's I've never heard of a hero doing that before, so that's a new thought. Let's talk about the Damned Tourists book. What's that about?
So that is a my travel parody on four characters, and they have vacation habits that are so annoying they're actually superhuman. So a very like just a comical look of like obnoxious tourists to make obnoxious tourists, you know, um, just make them kind of tolerable because they're clueless. So you can't really be mad at them. You end up like laughing at them and sometimes with them. So your four characters are Mr. Distraction, Mr. Postcard, Misinformed, and Mr. Aloha. So they each have this bad vacation habit. So for instance, Mr. Distraction, he's the ultimate clueless person because he never pays attention when he's on vacation. He's just looking at a scenic spot, or if he's driving a car, he's looking at another spot. So he'll bump into you, or he'll end up running you over because he's just not paying attention at all. He's out there like, pointing out the window at something. You have Misinformed who, and some were based off of friends or relatives. Misinformed pretty much gets every every detail about a place she's vacationing at wrong. So she has this outdated information. So for instance, she goes to Hawaii, she thinks that everyone's still in the hut. So she shows up and he's like, "Wait, why are these houses here? Like that's not that's not what I thought of." Or she goes to LA, she's like, "Oh, I guess everyone's in acting." Everyone's like in entertainment, like, "Oh no, some people just work at Target." There is Mr. Postcard. He's, of course, a resident photographer who, of course, takes horrible photographs and has a blinding camera flash that everyone else around him has to deal with because he's always like snapping photos. And then the last character, which ends up being one of my favorites, is Mr. Aloha, who just literally has like the loudest floral wear imaginable. Like if you, it's just this bright yellow shirt with like orange flower petals on it, and anyone who comes within a few feet of them has to cover their ears because they just can't stand
It's
it.
that loud, huh?
Yeah. And of course, they don't realize they're annoying people, so they're just going about their business. And people are suspect, like, this is probably not going to be the best time, especially for people who are in the service industry that has to directly deal with them. But then they have all this endless, supply of money. So they're like, yeah, maybe it's not that bad. And then they just, take it too far to the point where they actually end up getting kicked out of wherever they're visiting. But they're so eternally happy that whatever happens, including getting kicked out, they have this positive spin on it. So they're getting kicked out. They're like, we're getting escorted to the next state or to the next vacation spot. How nice of them.
Is that one shot? How many issues has that been? Or
So that's six
six
issues. I'm
issues?
currently working on the seventh issue. It's for right now, it's going to run about 12 issues, but I'm actually introducing some new characters that may,
Oh.
maybe take the mantle of them that they run into that are kind of like-minded.
Hmm. I'm reminded somehow of the old, you may be too young to remember these, the old Dennis the Menace travel specials, the giant books where Dennis and his family would go off to all these vacation spots. And of course, Dennis would cause trouble without really meaning to. It's brings back fond memories of that. They went to Hawaii, they went to Washington, D.C., they went to several other places. I can't remember anything more than the Hawaii and the Washington, D.C., though. Oh, summer camp. He went to summer camp once. So, it's an old idea. I'm to leave off that. I am particularly interested in your mongoose. Where the heck did that come from?
So this one was actually one that I was pitching to the bus company in Hawaii around, I was about maybe 19 or 20, because I was actually trying to contribute on a campaign for someone running for mayor. He actually had been mayor 2 years before. He wanted to try to jump back into it. And he's known for starting the bus system in Hawaii. So I sent him some bus artwork, and he actually called me maybe a few days or weeks later after he got it in the mail to his campaign headquarters and said, "Oh, thank you for that." And I was really surprised that this guy running for mayor had called my house and said, "Hey, you should really contact this person at the bus company. They might have, he runs the art department. They might have something interesting. They might need an artist for something. So give him a call." So I called him actually at a meeting, and he said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to do a mascot for the bus company." And immediately when he said that, and he was showing me photos of other mascots around the state and or around like other states, I immediately thought, oh, mongoose. Like no one has done that. And the mongoose it's not native to Hawaii, but it was an imported like, late 1800s. So it's in the culture now. So, and no one has really used it for anything. So I thought, oh, I'll use it for that. Now, unfortunately, it kind of fell through because I had to pretty much finance it myself, which I couldn't at that young age. So actually put it on the shelf until I moved to LA. And as I was doing conventions when I had Cosmic Force and Damn Tourists, I just realized that I really didn't have anything for kids. So I thought, you know, this Mongoose character, because I had done comic strips of him to promote as a possible mascot for the bus company. I still had a one comic strip. I thought, why don't I just retool it and take that comic strip of him like catching the bus using a fishing line, which I can use as an exaggeration, and like, okay, that's his thing. He just does these figures of speech and he's more of this performance artist. So I'm like, okay, there we go. Let's just do a comic strip compilation. I also do this game usually like the first Monday of every month called Mongoose Mondays. You have to name a expression that he's doing. And I've been doing it since off and on since 2013. And it's just a fun thing to do like on social media. So it's funny, like that's the last character I created, and he has kind of the longest history and the most traction, and almost became famous in another way.
Um, and this Mongoose Mondays you can find on Facebook, on
I'll do Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram. Okay. Um, Before we get to the project that you told me you have on tap, let's go over social media. How can people follow you? What's the best way to do that?
You can follow me on my Facebook page, Carter, facebook.com/Carter Comics. Also Instagram at Carter Comics 1. And I also have an online store, anyplanet.com /Carter Comics. And I have a lot of both Figure Siege Mongoose. I have Damn Tourist, I have Cosmic Force. You can either download those for purchase, or you can actually order the physical copy there.
Yeah, Indie Planet is a branch of Kablam. They do your printing, and they will do print on demand. Anybody who wants a copy, whether it's Carter Comics or Heroic Publishing, you can get them on Indie Planet. So that's a great service that they provide. Are you on Drive-Through Comics or any of the other digital media?
I am not currently on Drive-Through Comics. I am on, I still am on Amazon Kindle.
Hmm. Okay.
But I think, yeah, Any Planet was the main one, mostly because they're linked to Kablam. It was so easy. Once my books were done, you know, I ordered a copy and then they would put them on the online store. So
Yeah,
it was easy for me to tell people, especially at conventions.
absolutely. Okay. Project 4. What's that going to be about?
So this was really a fun one because it was introduced to me by another friend who's a long time cartoonist who had a friend who is a comics dealer, and he contacted me saying, "Hey, I wanted to sell an 8-page book about my story as a comic collector, just starting with my love of comics from a kid, to an adult." So we met and kind of just went over it, and what what was really exciting was that part of the reason he chose me was because he liked my style from Damn Tourist. He liked that kind of like weird kind of blocky style and thought it would just work really well with the story that he was telling. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I know just a lot of people at conventions do like Damn Tourists, and some people mentioned the artwork, but in terms of someone who wanted like a freelance project done, saying, "Hey, I want that style," I'm like, oh, that is really interesting. I would love to do that. So currently, it's just in the penciling phase. Like I'm doing the comic art boards. A lot of the title is pending, so a lot of the things like that'll be finalized will come later. Just like the title and then the coloring and all that, and the dialogue is done at this point. And what's going to happen is once it's done, he'll have it at certain conventions that he'll sell for free, like probably along with like some of like the comics, the old comics that he has, and I'll get like the credits on it. So it's really interesting, and plus we're really like-minded. So when we meet together to discuss the book, like you know, we tend to think the same way. So the creative process works really well.
Well, you've told me about the technical aspect. What can you tell me about the story, the plot? Is that still under wraps, or can you explain what the story is, something about what the story is going to be?
Well, it's just a general run of just yeah, just his love of comics. So
Okay,
I
so this
started
is
for him as like a little kid, and as he grows up,
I
still,
see.
yeah,
It's sort of
still love,
a
yeah.
biographical kind of thing, in a way. Okay, I get it. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I'll
and
be
what's really
looking.
great about oh, yeah.
Uh,
And I was going to say what's really great about it is that um because it's documenting the person as a kid, and there's maybe other characters that he grew up with, so it's a lot of taking a lot of real people and then putting them in that damn tourist style that he did want.
hmm,
So that can be really tricky. It's one of those things where I think it's kind of tricky, and then when I do it, it's like, oh no, I kind of got it. Even though like that cartoony style, similar to say like a maybe like a Looney Tunes, where or especially like say the Simpsons, where you have like limited parts of the facial features to really make someone stand out to say, oh, that's that character because you did his nose this way or his eyes or maybe like part of his cheekbones because it's such a limited cartoony style. It's tricky to get it done, but when you do it, like it, you can see like you look at it and it's like, oh, that totally works. Like I nailed it. So yeah, it's just a story of him collecting the comics. I'll get like a lot of reference for the particular comics that he was into as well. That's really the only thing that has like the realistic type of detail, just offset with the with the cartoony look.
okay, that sounds like it could be very interesting. Biographical stuff, just done well. I'm trying to think what word I'm looking for here. It can be enlightening, maybe. Um, but anyway, um, sounds like we've pretty well covered. Is there anything else that occurs to you that you would really like to talk about? Maybe advice to give to people who want to get into the comic book industry, um, or things not to do if you want to get into the comic book industry?
Oh, sure. The biggest thing is really persistence because like a lot of creative endeavors, it's just a lot of work and a lot of you may not get like let's say if you do a convention, you may not get the sales that you want. It's just it's hey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So like a lot of things you really have to love it and just draw as much as you can, write as much as you can. Definitely, you know, read books, read some books for reference, or if there's a certain way you like to brainstorm for ideas, if you're just working by yourself, all those things just go back to persistence because it's just a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of drawing, it's a lot of conventions, it's a lot of different interviews, either whether you're at a show or you do a radio show interview. It's all these things and they just add up, and after a few years of doing these things, like you build a community, which is so important because that makes things a little bit easier because all these opportunities that you're kind of looking for on your own, once you have other like-minded people that you meet, they might tell you something. Hey, you might be able to do this show, or I have this person who maybe they're looking for an artist or looking for a writer, or someone's doing a radio show. You can say the same thing to them if you find something. So it's just that persistence of drawing and getting your work out there and building the community. And once the community's there, that base is really good enough. You might run into some issues, but knowing that people know you is just the most helpful thing because then you kind of feel like, okay, I might not be exactly where I want to be, but I am on that path because I have this community. So people look at me and like, oh, oh yeah, you go to a lot of conventions. I've seen like your work, and that's that's like the best feeling of all. But yeah, it all starts with just persistence. Never stop drawing, never stop writing.
You're recommending that people engage in some networking, build those personal contacts, build those business contacts. because you never know when an opportunity might open up. And if people know you, if they're thinking of you, that opportunity could come to you.
Yeah, and that's what's so fun about it. You never know when, particularly just at conventions, you never know who you'll run into. Like if you don't sell some books, like but you ran into a bunch of people that maybe somebody who did an interview on you, or maybe if you did a few sales, that one person just they loved your work so much, and maybe they told a bunch of people afterward, and so the week after the show, you just hear some, maybe they emailed back or Facebook you back saying, "Hey, I told her about your work. I would like, hey, maybe you should do a signing somewhere." And it's something that just snowballs. I mean, I'll say I've done some shows that maybe weren't as good, but I may have met, say, like someone who ran a bookstore
Hmm.
who said, "Hey, if you want to sell your books here, or if you want to do like a discussion group with with other artists, just give me a call." And and then when you hear that one thing that comes out of something that may not have turned out the way you wanted, then you think, you know what? It was all worth it.
Yeah, you never know. You never know when lightning will strike. Well, Alan, I want to thank you for this. I want people to check out your books, Damn Tourists. Um, what's the full name of the mongoose character? It's
The figure speech
Figure of
mongoose.
Speech Mongoose. Yes, and the Force book,
And yeah, Cosmic Force.
Cosmic Force. Alrighty, and
And and I would like to say one thing. I am set to do some conventions this year.
oh yes,
Right now, the convention that I am booked for is Pasadena Comic Con, which unfortunately got rescheduled to May. It was going to be in late January, on January 26th, but it got moved to May 24th.
May 24th, Pasadena Comic Con. What other conventions do you have coming up?
Some other ones that are not confirmed, but I'm looking at doing is the Anacon, which is at Anaheim Library, and that will be, I believe, April 17th. So
Okay,
it's around like mid-April, and that's free to attend, and from 11 to 4 p.m.
a
It's just a
one-day show.
really fun show. Yeah, one day show.
One day show. Okay. You think you might be there. Alrighty. Okay. Alan, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. Do it again. Let me know when the when that fourth project is in shape. We can talk about that specifically. All right. And
No problem.
have a good night. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.